work on similar. So happy to listen in and to learn what you're doing. I should also mention that Ian Dombrowski is our on-site wastewater coordinator, and he also is getting involved in Cape 208 issues now. So we may want to bring him in on future discussions. So thank you.
Okay, and with that, I think that's everyone on the call. Kurt, I'm going to turn it to you now just to give a brief update on where the committee is. And then I thought we would go to Scott to give an update on where we are with our plan draft, and then Anastasia to talk about our proposed sewer districts that we've been working on. And then I was going to finish up with just an overview of our draft Board of Health regulations, because all of these parts go together and they're all sort of going to come to completion, hopefully at the same time, which is by the end of June, which seems like tomorrow. So with that, go ahead, Kurt.
It is tomorrow, and we've only been working on it for 10 years. So no, we're really excited. I think today's meeting, the main focus is really going to be for Anastasia to present the backup plan that DEP has been looking for in some detail, so that we, not only have now, I think, a robust set of well-vetted alternatives that Scott's been working on for for some time, but along with a sewer district included in our overall plan that I think is responsive to what DEP was really looking for. Not only the sewer district, but also, a full backup plan. So that's I think mainly the focus. Folks from DEP have seen a lot of the detail that Scott has presented before. So unless somebody else needed to hear more, we really wanted to focus on Anastasia today.
Actually, if we could just give a brief overview of those items, just to make sure that some of the newer folks at DEP are all on the same page, that would be great.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go, Scott.
Okay, let me share my screen here if I may. Can you see this slide? My beautiful, oh, hold on. That's not the right slide. Can you see that slide?
Yes.
Okay, so I will provide, Drew, I was going to suggest that as well. I do want to focus on Anastasia's update because that's really the new information, but let me just quickly orient on what we've been working on for a while now. Again, our goal here is obviously compliance with the Clean Water Act, but we're definitely looking at other local concerns. As some of you know, we've had some really positive discussions with the affordable housing group in town. So we're hoping this plan will not only fix the water, but also provide some affordable housing, which I think is a little bit unique. And then we're also very focused on local jobs. Wellfleet, we think Wellfleet's a unique community, as are most or all, but there's some local needs and local issues here that we really want to focus on. So I want to keep that in mind. This is not, in my mind, just a typical watershed plan. It's really very focused towards Wellfleet. The goal of the plan specifically, sort of numerically, is to meet these targets that have been identified through the MEP report. This graphic is showing both the kilogram per year reductions in each watershed, as well as the percentage of reduction in nitrogen from that plan. And I should mention that plan was really based upon data up through 2010. So one of the first things we did was updated that data through pretty much current. And then our plan will take us 30 years from there, as we'll get into. The overall plan is a hybrid plan following sort of the 208 approach here. And as we'll get to with Anastasia's presentation in a minute, in the middle there, you see downtown sewers as part of the plan. And we'll talk more specifically about that. Anastasia has also done work out at the transfer station, which is the location for wastewater treatment and disposal for any centralized wastewater. And that's been proven out through the on-site studies and groundwater modeling. But you can see that this plan also includes some ecological restoration projects such as Herring River and Mayo Creek. We are still investigating the possibilities of some PRB locations, although that may move relative to the sewering plan. So we've got that on hold a little bit. As I mentioned, we have been working closely with the affordable housing group in town, and there is a project planned at 95 Lawrence, which we view as part of this plan, because it will again provide affordable housing while reducing the nitrogen load in that critical watershed. And then we're also focused on things like stormwater mitigation. We've had a number of meetings with Mass DOT on a very focused project out at Route 6 intersection with the town. And it looks as though they're going to be able to integrate some stormwater improvements that should provide some nitrogen credits as part of that plan. So that's kind of the overall plan. What is not noted here, although the symbols are here, are innovative and alternative septics as well as shellfish. They are also part of the plan. As I think everybody knows, Wellfleet is, I was going to say a leading, but maybe the leading shellfish producer in the state. And so we think that is part of the plan, but we've thought carefully and spent a lot of time working with the shellfish groups in town that we don't want to overemphasize that. So that's really been reduced significantly from some of the original conversations, but it is still a part of the plan. And then I'll talk more specifically briefly about some of the INAs. And this is a graphic that I showed at a meeting this past fall. As I think most people know, there's been huge advances in the on-site septic market. These concentrations at the top represent some sort of evolution of what we're seeing for effluent and what we've assumed for effluent, going back to some Cape Cod Commission work. The original assumption was a Title V system produces around 35 milligrams per liter. The MEP reports have that down at around 26 milligrams per liter. We do have some INA systems that have been permitted for general use at 19. And then more recently, really over the last few years, we've had a number of technologies come along in response to a developing market, and they are producing significantly lower numbers. The current numbers on the far right are in the, I'll just say the 5 to 8 milligram per liter range. I was on a call this morning talking about some of the most recent results at Schubel's Pond in Barnstable, where they're getting 3 and 4 milligrams. And I might add, those are influent numbers of 90 and 100 milligrams per liter. So pretty interesting stuff. And that's why we feel this can be part of the plan. I'm not going to get into the details on this, Hillary, but we do, as she mentioned, we do have a health reg we've been talking about. The one thing I just want to highlight here, because I think it can be part of the discussion, we've been talking about this with the Board of Health now for close to a year, and I think they are seriously considering this, requiring these so-called enhanced INAs on, as it says here, new installations, repairs, upgrades, etc. The change I think we're thinking about now, and I've bolded it, is to do this outside of the planned sewering area downtown, because there's been a concern about, we don't want to have people pay twice. So now that we have Anastasia's good work almost completed, we have some maps that she'll be showing you. And my thought is maybe we could focus this regulation outside of that area. Our draft regulation does define these so-called enhanced INAs as less than 10, according to third-party data. And we do believe, working with the Barnstable County Mass Tech Center, that there are a number of technologies that have this data and more can apply. And in fact, Hillary and I were talking briefly about composting toilets can qualify and meet this standard as well. So that's kind of the regulation that's in place. As a reminder, the town did authorize $250,000 last year at the June town meeting. That money is still available. And the intent of that was to provide some subsidy to the first batch, if you will, of these systems going in the ground. I have done a number of computations on cost efficiency here, and I do believe these systems, I've done sensitivity analyses at a range of performance with these INAs, 5, 8, and 11 milligrams per liter, comparing it to the Title V numbers. And I do believe these systems are cost effective. And I think they're cost effective in comparison to centralized sewering. Although I think at this point, we do need a central sewer in the downtown area for a variety of reasons beyond simply cost efficiency. And these numbers are still in development, so I won't spend much time on those, but we do feel the INA systems are cost effective. And I'll stop there on this slide just to indicate that, as Kurt mentioned, we do have I've been working very closely with this Clean Water Advisory Committee. We've done a lot of public meetings, but we do know that we need to do some more once we get this plan sort of in a final form. And I'm going to stop there and see if there's any quick questions, but I want to ask, I know that Anastasia has some slides. So Hillary, with your permission, I'll just ask her if there are any quick questions on what I've said so far,
That's perfect, Scott.
or we can wait until Anastasia. Okay, well, why don't we do that then, Anastasia? The
Perfect.
floor is yours.
Wonderful. Give me just 1 minute to pull up my slides. And can everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
So I've been focused on the centralized sewer component of this TWMP, and we wanted to give a brief update today outlining the methodology that we used for the analysis and the 2 MEP compliance plans that are included in the TWMP, as well as to show the preliminary sewer shed analysis. So our analysis was done based on using 2 data sources. The majority of the town does not have public water. So for analysis, we use the MEP assumptions for water use linked to a GIS database. And then for parcels where water use is available, we were able to use the latest 2018 to 2020 water use data to slightly update that data set. And as part of the TWMP, we've developed 2 approaches. The first is a hybrid approach, which focuses on optimizing pilot technologies. So it includes INA systems. For this analysis, we assumed an effluent total nitrogen concentration of 8 milligrams per liter, which is in the middle of the range that Scott had noted for preliminary results of these types of systems. It looks at fertilizer mitigation, stormwater reduction, shellfish and aquaculture, ecological restoration, potential use of a PRB, as well as a core collection system. In the municipal one, focusing on 2 priority watersheds in the downtown district, which are Duck Creek and the Cove. And then it also looks at the nutrient impact of the 2 private centralized systems in town at 95 Lawrence and at the Harborside Trailer Park. Our scenario 2 is built as a backup if the pilot technologies don't perform as anticipated, and it's made completely of traditional technologies. So this approach focuses on INA systems that have a general use effluent total nitrogen concentration of 19 milligrams per liter, as well as a much larger centralized sewering component. And so this is a breakdown of the different sub-watersheds that Scott had presented, and our balance of how we'll reach the reduction goals for 2052. As Scott mentioned, this plan looks towards a 30-year planning horizon.
Hey, Anastasia, you're
And
breaking
so
up a
you'll see
little
there's
bit.
credits
Maybe,
for the collection and treatment.
maybe
Sorry,
if you turn off
go
your
ahead, Scott.
video, you're breaking up a little bit, I think. Other people?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this any better?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. And both of our plans rely on centralized effluent disposal at the Wellfleet transfer station parcel. So we do account for the load that is being returned to the watershed and the additional nitrogen management that's needed to be able to balance to meet the MEP thresholds. And then if we go to the second scenario, as you'll see, we're not taking credit in this scenario for any of the pilot technologies, and we're focusing on the 19 milligram per liter INA systems, as well as centralized collection and treatment. And this centralized collection and treatment is within the capacity that was evaluated at the transfer station when we did our hydraulic load testing evaluations and groundwater modeling. So it's envisioned that for this plan, that is where the effluent disposal would occur. So this is a preliminary layout of option 1, which focuses on that core sewer area, and it's focused in Duck Creek and in the Cove, primarily in the commercial district closest to the bay itself. As I noted, this is the costing that's being done for this portion of the evaluation is assuming effluent recharge at the transfer station parcel. As part of our analysis, we have identified other parcels that may be considered, and they may be evaluated further as part of a further evaluation. But right now we have the more conservative transfer station parcel in our analysis. And then, as anticipated, our backup plan has a much larger component of centralized sewing. So this is a preliminary figure of the extent of sewering that's anticipated for that backup option. So that was, we wanted to provide today a brief overview of how the centralized sewing component fits into the TWMP. And I wanted to see if there were any questions for either Scott or myself on how the two components fit together.
Yeah, I have a question. So what was the assumption that was made in splitting up the new construction numbers versus upgrades or repairs for the Title V IAs?
Let me go back. So we do carry two different lines. The focus of the first portion is to upgrade the existing systems. And then Scott conducted an analysis looking at growth projections per sub-watershed from 2022 to 2052.
Okay.
And that's the very top line is how much load we anticipate based on those growth projections that in this scenario would be handled by future INA upgrades.
And
Okay,
Drew, just
so
go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to confirm. So new construction is focusing on build out. And then you're assuming that none of the existing would be demolished and be considered by Title V as new construction.
Actually, the new construction is not built out, and it's 2052. It's a 30-year plan. So what we did is we looked at historical construction rates, I think over the last 10 years. The town not too long ago completed a housing study, so that was one of the sources. And we projected that growth rate over the 30-year planning period. So that's what the new construction is.
And then the existing system is the conversion of existing Title V systems to an INA technology.
Okay. So
Right.
when the draft TWMP is presented, if that can just be defined, because I was confusing new construction with the definition of new construction in Title V, not so much as growth projections.
Okay.
And so
Okay,
just to make that clear.
Sure.
thank you for that comment.
And then I think I had one more question. Oh, you may not have this one off the top of your head, because I don't see percentages necessarily, but what percentage of nitrogen reduction would you say is coming from the core sewer area in scenario 1?
Go back to that slide. We can probably
Yeah.
And you can get
estimate
back to me with that one, or yeah, estimate.
We can probably,
but
let's see.
that-
So it's
That would be a value
Yeah,
that we would look forward to seeing in a draft as well.
sure. Okay. Well, just quickly, it looks like the total reduction is 12,700. And this is saying, in this one, it would be, it's almost about 10%.
10%, yeah.
But I can get you that number, Drew.
And then, sorry, I said the last one was the last one, but this one, and then I'll continue my
Okay.
thought. And so you would characterize this as a 30-year plan?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, so how many year plan?
30.
30, 30.
30? Okay. Just to compare contrast, the watershed permit that we have, that we entered into with PBA, I think is a 20-year, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and so exactly, Millie. So we would prefer plans to be shaped around 20 years. We do understand some things can go over, but if best effort can be done towards the 20. And then if there are any prevailing circumstances that would hold you from going towards the 20, that should be explained.
I don't think that's a problem at all, Drew. I think I could revise, just quickly thinking what needs to be done, but I think I certainly can be done.
Yeah, I think that's a really important comment that Drew is bringing forth, and I wanted to underscore that too, because you're going to be seeing how these permits will be solidly structured around the 20-year timeframe with check-ins every well, we have the annual reports and then big decision points like the diamond at 5 years. And again, it's all predicated on adaptive management. And we want to make sure that if we need to tweak something because one of the strategies is not panning out, or maybe there's a strategy that's really exceeding your expectations, that's going to be the moment in time when we will be doing the checks and balances. I apologize. But for sure, it's, built around 20 years. I'm sorry, Drew.
No, it's fine. No, and to add to that, it's more so we're recommending that so it's not a duplicative process, because you can have a longer time period within your TWMP, just as towns have that in their CWMPs. But when it comes to finalizing the watershed permit, that's when we're really looking for a 20-year potential horizon. And then any explanation why 20 years would not work, or just expounding on that.
Drew, do you think it would be okay or a good idea to keep the work we've done as 30-year, but then break out the 20 as sort of a subset so you have both numbers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then it would make the review easier when we get to the watershed permit.
Sure. Okay. Happy to do that. That shouldn't be a problem.
And this is Mary Jo. I just also wanted to mention that EPA also is supporting 20 years as opposed to 30 years for these plans. And I had a question under the hybrid approach. I don't know if you're going to get into it, but are there aspects of this approach that you would be moving on first, when you're thinking about how you're going to phase this in?
Yeah, well, actually, sure. I'm sorry, Mary Jo, are you finished?
No, yes, I am.
So can you go back to that slide, Anastasia, the one you just had up?
Right now.
Numbers, yeah. So interestingly, two of the features on this plan have already been implemented. The shellfish numbers here has what is, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, I originally had back in the fall a more significant emphasis on the shellfish development. But after talking with the select board and the shellfish committee, there was concern about how optimistic we should be. So I decided to take a very conservative approach. We actually got the shellfish landings data from 2010 to 2020, the last 10 years since the MEP did their studies. These numbers you're looking at here are actual increases in landings. So this scenario assumes that 2,000 kilograms is already in the bank, if you will. It's already happened. So, and this scenario shows no increase beyond that, which I know some people I think feel we should have more, but that's what's here right now. The other thing that's already happened is within the collection system, and maybe you could go back to that other slide, Anastasia, that showed the three components. Yeah, so on the bottom left there, the Harborside Trailer Park has also been upgraded since the MEP report. They improved the treatment system. I think it went from 19 to 10. So we've provided that in here as credit. I think to answer your question beyond that, Mary Jo, I know the town is very actively pursuing the 95 Lawrence project. and there's been attempts to get some funding there. Perhaps Rebecca could, I don't want to put you on the spot, Rebecca, but I don't know if there are others who want to update on the schedule of that, but that's something the town is want to move forward with, I think, almost regardless of this plan. So that's in the works. So those, and I know that the other thing I would mention, I think most people know the Herring River project and the Mayo Creek restoration projects. The town has been working earnestly on those for quite some time. And I think they're all, both of those are on the front burner as well.
And I would just add one more, Scott, that wasn't on there, but House Pond, it's not all that significant, but it is another project that's going forward quickly.
Yeah, and I also want to just reiterate the fact that the town did appropriate $250,000 at town meeting last year for the IA upgrades. I thought that was a pretty good gesture on the part of the town to implement this. I don't see that often happening in other towns. So I think that was that's also something I'd suggest that would be a early implementation and commitment.
Yeah, along with 1.9 for the 95 Lawrence
Good point.
and
Good point.
a couple $100,000 for PRBs. So the town did take a very, very, very aggressive action at the last town meeting, even before getting this finalized. So if nothing else, I think, at least I would hope from DEP's perspective, that would be seen as really positive development.
Yeah, Kurt, I just want to tell you and the entire team, and I will definitely, never mind, speak for myself, but also as DEP. I'm just so excited and encouraged by the work that you've done. I still have my file when we started this conversation back in 2016, not that far back, 2016. And I've seen the significant improvements with regards to your strategy. I remember the days when we were talking about, just very limited traditional approach to some of the areas that really have a lot of watershed loading, including Duck Creek in the Cove and Drummer Blackfish, Hatches Creek, Wellfleet Harbor, and Logie Bay. So it's great that, as I'm seeing this centralized collection treatment, you've really incorporated some of the traditionals with a good mix of hybrid IA systems and others. So I just want to say thank you so much for listening to DEP and also working with the entire constituency in your town. And I really, I look forward to assisting with the packaging of this information so that we can move this forward in a way that brings about, being able to ink this permit and together move forward in a way that you can then start capturing funding to advance these strategies. So this is truly remarkable what you've done here. I'm just going back to my notes, going back to past meetings, going back to so many pieces of information. And I think Brian Dudley would be very pleased if he was still working with DEP. Let's put it that way.
Well, we've tried to listen.
Oh no, and you did, and it shows. And I think that's why we're here today. So I think, makes me wonder, and maybe this is not the right time at this moment for the meeting, but I do want to ensure that before we end this meeting, we do have some concrete steps with regards to working closer on a more regular schedule so that we can actually start doing some peer reviewing. We're more than happy to, akin to what we did with Pleasant Bay and Carol Ridley and her group, working together to start reviewing pieces, often, when it's predicated on how much work people have. I know we're really super busy these days, but this is a priority, and being able to receive documents that we can weigh in and comment, and being able to transact in a way that's a little bit more personable. We can get a lot of ideas rather than just the underlined red light strikeout. We're more than happy to do that so that we have a targeted plan coupled with the watershed permit. And I think the group has always talked about when is the right moment to start engaging with chief municipal officer, and we clearly have Board of Health represented. So it would be a matter of starting to work with the chair and all the Select Board members so that they know that this is a solid plan, that DEP, EPA is behind it, Cape Cod Commission, together working as a team. And you would be number 2 on the Cape with a watershed permit, you know, and I think that was a goal that we had talked about way back before COVID. So.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Millie. I really appreciate it. It's been a great collaborative effort. I think the Board of Selectmen is on board with this plan. It's responsive to a number of the questions that they've raised. You know, I would just put a highlight on Scott's earlier comment about aquaculture. You know, his numbers going forward assume no additional shellfish production, which in the town of Wellfleet is not going to happen. So in terms of conservatism, we think it's extremely conservative, which then forced significant investments in other activities. So just as an underlying assumption, that's a big one. I mean, aquaculture, I think, is what, close to 10% as it is, Scott, roughly 5 to 10. So that's pretty significant when you look at the overall picture. The other thing I would also want to follow up with, Millie, is, you know, we feel a burning pressure right now to, you know, be very responsive, especially in getting you documents. I'll let Scott and Anastasia speak to timeline more directly, but we really feel like we've got to be in the funding queue, certainly for SRF by August. We can't do that without, you know, at least a plan that's been blessed by the Board of Selectmen and is under active review by DEP. So that's the other sort of burning issue here. And obviously with the infrastructure funds that have become available, both through the congressional infrastructure bill, other ARPA funds and SRF funds from the Airbnb taxes, there are accumulated funds around that frankly aren't going to be around very much longer, I fear. And so we want to be very aggressive about trying to get as much of that as we can to really get our program launched. And so I think if we miss that window, the town of Wellfleet, being the small town that it is, does not have a lot of political pull in terms of getting funding like other larger towns. You know, with roughly 3,000 population, we just don't have the leverage that a lot of other communities do. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we're a relatively, even though our real estate values might be high, we're a relatively poor community. So, and we've had, you know, recent financial challenges. We've had 2 years of not being able to certify free cash. It's created a financial debacle within town administration. We're looking at a 1.5 Prop 2.5 override this town meeting. So just to put a fine point on the financial precariousness that we sit in today, we believe this is a huge opportunity, and obviously we've worked collaboratively on this. So it's just to reemphasize your point, Millie, that we want to work closely as quickly as we can to get this over the finish line.
Yeah, we're motivated, we're ready to go. So whenever you have a package, it doesn't have to be perfect, Kurt. We are happy to start working on this. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of traction from DEP in the next coming weeks. So we want to make sure that we position you and all the Cape towns in a good place. But we made a commitment with Wellfleet, and we want to make sure that we see that through. Our commissioner is very much engaged, very, very much engaged. In fact, I'm going to recommend that he visit with you all soon. So we just, you know, it was important for us to gather today so that we could understand the science and the engineering and all the technology behind your plan. I clearly depend on Gerard and Drew and Ian in Southeast region, and, you know, Mary Jo's here and Cape Cod Commission. Together, we as a team want to make sure that this plan is a responsive plan, an action-based plan, an adaptive management-based plan, whereas you are not invoking maybe, you know, co-joining with other nearby communities. You know, I think that's less of a challenge then, Brewster and Harwich and Chatham and Orleans, they had the IMA, they had all these complications and we're still able to get it done. But you have the command and control to make sure that it happens on your time, at your own pace. So we will definitely flag this. I will be making sure that the Boston folks are aware that you're ready to go. I do have a question. I know back in 2016, we had some of the documents talked about how Wellfleet, the watershed and sub watersheds were not listed on the 303D list. But I think since then, maybe it's changed and there's a TMDL out there. And maybe it's on us. We need to kind of work with you and release it for public comment. So I assume maybe the Southeast Region team or Mary Jo can help me here.
So they currently have a draft TMDL.
Okay, so, I say that because often what gets you crazy enough, what gets you into SRF, what gets you into the funding priorities are when you show and demonstrate that there's a need, there's an issue here. And often a TMDL is a vehicle to kind of get people's attention. So I will go back to the Commissioner's Office, BWR, working with Kathy Baskin and see if it's in our shop. We want to see if we can get that out. But we clearly will be working with you and EPA.
Yeah, let me know.
So
I mean, I don't know if it's in your shop or in our shop at this point.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, we need to coordinate on that.
Yeah.
Because I think I understood the next step was public hearing. Is that true, Drew?
I'm not sure. I believe it's in our shop. But to kind of build off of what you're saying, so just within our SRF grading process as is right now, even if the TWNP is finalized and approved by Mass DEP, that will be able to get you a good amount of points. There has already been Massachusetts Estuary Project MEP studies, and that's the basis of the TMDL. And so with that science backing or basis or foundation, foundation, I like that word better, you would still be able to get those points. So just because the TMDL isn't finalized, you wouldn't be penalized point-wise because of something that might be on our end. You would still get those points because of the MEP. And then just kind of building off of action items that you mentioned, just kind of making sure that the ball continues to roll. One thing that we do kind of as a courtesy outside of traditional permitting when it comes to hydrogeological analysis is just to have those preliminary results reviewed by our hydrogeo tech team at Mass DEP. And so if those results, the work that has already been done, can be attached to the TWNP, and then also if it can be sent either separately or with the draft TWNP for just kind of preliminary comment by our hydrogeologists before the WP83. It just makes things go a lot more smoother in shaping our scope of work and then doing the actual permitting analysis for the 83 when it comes to your centralized sewer and the backup line. So that's a concrete step that could be taken next.
Should we send that to you? I guess, how should we route our documents to you? Do you want me to send it to Millie and Millie can ship it out to all of you? I'm happy to send it to all of you. I think I have all of your emails at this point. What's the easiest way for us to transmit information to you?
I think on Gerard, why don't you maybe just decide, because it's your bureau. I just need to be involved with regards to communication because we need to get this to the finish line.
Yes.
I think if they got it to Drew and Ian, and they, I work closely with them to discuss what needs to be done and whatnot, and what reviews we need to do. And then we also, I can work with the hydrogeo folks to get them involved when we need to.
Okay, so I'll send it to Drew,
Yes.
Ian, and Gerard.
Hillary,
you want
if
it as
you
well,
wouldn't
or-
It wouldn't hurt to include me, but
Okay,
I get a lot of emails Millie
Okay,
gets
that's
more,
fine. Yeah, no, Drew and I correspond by email pretty regularly. So
Millie
that's
gets
fine.
more emails. I get more than Drew, and Drew
That's
lets me know
fine.
when he has something that needs to be looked at.
Excellent. And Mary Jo, do you want it as well?
Yeah, if you
Okay.
wouldn't mind, and then I'll distribute it to our Cape Cod team.
Okay, let me ask you this. I know you want to see the hydro work and Scott's work. Do you want the draft Board of Health regulations in there too? Because I would value your comments on that, because that's actually gonna be the trigger to get these folks to start upgrading to the enhanced IA systems. So I just feel like we could package all that together, and obviously any thoughts or comments you have, I would greatly appreciate. I don't need to review it today. But the Board of Health the thought process is that we send all of this to you, and then the Board of Health starts holding their public hearings on the regulation changes. So the thought is that when you approve that, our regulations will be in place and we'll be ready to go.
What's the schedule for the Board of Health specific to the bylaw?
So we've reviewed the draft at our previous 2 meetings. So the Board of Health meets once a month on the second Wednesday of the month. And we took up the first draft, which is, it's a much longer draft than what Scott showed you, but everything that Scott showed you is incorporated somehow into the larger draft regulation change. So we've reviewed it preliminarily. It sort of lines up with the town of Truro, because you were talking about regional work. So Truro is working closely on some of the same things that Wellfleet is working on, which is really nice. And then the thought was we would go to public hearing as soon as we submitted everything to you.
Okay, so when you say submitted to us, is that for final?
I think that's for the final draft. Yeah, because I think Brian impressed upon us several times that we don't want to have these regulations in place without an approved plan from DEP. So they all kind of go hand in hand.
Gotcha.
I don't want to wait forever, because we are seeing some water quality issues in our ponds, and
Yeah,
and the board doesn't want to start failing cesspools until we have our approved plan. So everything sort of hinges on our approved plan. And I think the whole board is on board with it. So it's just.
Yeah, and let me just add one other thing there, though. Millie, you may have a different perspective, but that's sort of how we've been proceeding, and it's been sort of a comment from the Board of Health that they'd like to see, an approved plan. However, I don't see any reason why, you couldn't look at that separately and just say, look at the regulation, look at the importance relative to the plan. And I think to the extent that you had anything to say about it, positively or negatively, that could influence the Board of Health to move ahead more quickly. In other words, approval on a complete plan that includes all the other components may or may not be necessary to get this Board of Health regulation off the ground. As Hillary mentioned, we've been talking about this with the Board of Health, I think for probably 5 years. We had George Hoyfelder do a presentation over 5 years ago where we talked about layer cake and advanced treatment systems. And clearly with the, CLF drumbeat and the other concerns about, and our own personal concerns of septic systems continuing to go in the ground, the sooner we stop that, the better off we all are relative to anything that's going on. So, anything you could do to help us would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I just want to weigh in quickly. I do see a little bit of a chicken and egg situation here, which, the numbers, Hillary's numbers on number of systems per year is about 60. So every year there's roughly another 60 systems that are coming and going. And I think we'd all agree that, putting in these newer INAs is better than a Title V. And I think we would all agree that outside of the central sewering area, it's probably at best a long-term, more than 20 years to get to a full sewering plan, if in fact that's where we go. So I don't see personally, I don't see any reason to wait. But that's just me. And I agree with what Kurt's saying. I have heard some discussion, let's wait until DEP approves the final plan before we start regulating these systems. And I'm just not sure that's necessary. So I'll kind of put that as a question and see if, as Hillary's or Kurt's suggesting, I think that the Board of Health would be interested in DEP's take on that.
We
So
can,
Hillary, do we have the full language that it's currently for final?
No, I can send you the draft. I meant to send it out before the meeting just so you had it, but I wanted to sort of give a little bit of an overview of it. I'm
Mhm.
happy to send it. It is completely in draft form. You'll see that some sections aren't complete, but we'll take any comments you have to help us get to that final draft. The board is still sort of debating between a couple things, but in the most part, we just need to choose a few things and then it will be in the final draft form. But we wanted to wait and solicit some comments from, interested parties before doing so.
Okay. Yeah, well, that you can send to me, and then I'll be sure that that goes to the greater group at DEP, and I'll basically press on your request to look at it and the potential possibility that this may go ahead of Mass DEP approving the TWMP.
Perfect, but I think
Well,
it
if you can-
also gives Mass DEP sort of, the vision behind how we're actually going to get these systems in the ground. So I think it's good for that purpose as well. So yes, I will send you the draft tomorrow or later today.
Okay, and Drew?
I was just gonna ask if you can CC all of us on that.
Yeah,
And
sure.
just our early response, we can revisit our stance, but our early response in relation to the plan was just more so of the timing. How was the time being captured within the regulation to assure that the systems were gonna go into the ground at a certain point, that there would be upgrades or repairs, and that, in some areas we wouldn't be waiting long periods of time because technically there's no failure. Like, it's easy for the cesspools, but the ones that are, technically not failed by Title V, how are those going to be kind
So-
of cajoled to be repaired or upgraded?
Yeah, so we're changing our failure criteria to make it more stringent, obviously. We also have quite a few systems that are going to fall into a special category of, what we call the upside down lots that have been grandfathered for many years, that have a 7-bedroom system on a half an acre lot. So we're going to capture a lot more than Title V captures with our local regulation.
So yeah, that's
And-
what we want to look into closely, and then we'll probably
Yes.
recruit Mary Beth Chubb out of the
Yes,
Boston
yes.
office as our
Yeah, Drew,
program
so
lead.
I think that was the intention. I would not be keeping this information. This is gonna go to Mary Beth and Leldon, the greater group, including Gary Moran. So if you want, Hillary, you can
Perfect.
send to the DEP
Yes,
people
that's
here.
amazing, because I think you guys can actually help refine it to a better place than it is. So I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, so you can send it to this group of 4 for DEP or anybody else. I will still be sure that the Boston folks get it.
Great.
And I view this kind of like like in my 21E world, you've got like an interim, like an immediate response action. So you kind of want to get in front of doing something before you get into a comprehensive response action. So I get it. Anything that we can do, we definitely don't want to be a roadblock as it pertains to your bylaw. It's your town's bylaw. And we want to make sure that at least it's in sync with where we're going as a whole, the department policy and regulation.
Thank you for that, Millie. And I just wanted to add one other thing that you might want to think about. We had considered it. It's not, I don't think it's part of the draft regulation, but in order to expedite systems going in the ground, we did consider the idea of this being triggered at a sale, so real estate sale. So you may want to look at some of those mechanisms. Scott had actually done some excellent work looking at the numbers and the timing relative to those provisions within the regulation, which I think he could share with you as well. And so anything you would have to say about that, we'd be delighted to hear.
Well, change of
provide you with
property is
comments.
what the change of ownership is what triggers the current for inspection in Title V.
Right.
So
And
you
and
said
what
you
we
would
were-
just be requiring, go ahead.
yeah,
I'm
we
listening.
were actually thinking about requiring an upgrade, period, at the
Okay.
time of sale. So when you sell
And
your
also
house, you
for
have to
any-
go, yeah, you have to go to a advanced treatment system.
I think the draft regulation also contemplated any like expansion, somebody puts another bedroom on.
Expansion.
They're
yeah.
gonna have to dig up their yard. So might as well put the black box in there at that point. That was the idea. And in that way, it makes it a little bit more user-friendly. I think we're not knocking on people's doors and saying, we know you're not adding on anything, your system's working fine, but we're gonna require you to upgrade. This way, we're tying it to a transfer or an upgrade or a repair when people are used to coming to see Hillary and they're ready to spend some money. Just seems like that might be an easier to consume approach. And looking at the numbers, like I said, that's like 60 systems per year. You multiply 60 systems times 20 years or 30 years, you're
Mhm.
getting some serious numbers of systems.
You'll get
in the
there.
ground.
And
Right.
that was without requiring a real estate transfer.
That's right. That's right. Exactly right.
So just to bracket that, that's a
Yeah.
big number.
No, with the real estate transfer, it's more than 100 systems per year.
Yeah,
But also we're gonna catch folks doing construction projects, so we require an inspection now for a construction project, but when we change the failure criteria, we capture more folks. We added a provision for an inspection on a business license renewal once every 3 years. So I think there's a lot more trigger points to capture people. So we'll get there sooner than 60 systems a year.
I mean, I think that's really great. I remember maybe Gerard or Drew or Ian can remind me with the Pleasant Bay, they had similar strategies like that, especially for golf courses. So they had like specialized bylaws that got at, controlling nitrogen that way. So it's all within your power to decide as a town, what's the best way to stop nitrogen from creating water quality issues. So.
Yeah, we just originally didn't want the town to go ahead and proceed with a new bylaw, and then we would provide comments after the fact. And it's like, oh, now do we need to change this? So that's why we were very much upon having the approved plan first. But we can revisit that stance and just do something more in parallel.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like anything that advances our goals, it's definitely worth supporting. So we'll take a look, we'll provide comment and let us know how that goes.
Millie, I have one other timing question.
Thanks, Mary Jo. We'll see ya.
Thanks,
Hey,
Mary
Millie.
Jo. I have one other timing question. I think Anastasia and I are close to having a revised draft final report. Let's just say it's, I'll be optimistic here and say the first or second week of June, which is only 2 or 3 weeks away. Let's assume we submit a draft report. Now, it does need to go to the select board, I believe, before we do that, or I guess that's a question too. Just to thinking about expediting things here, would the select board like to know that DEP's looked at this and it looks pretty good? Or do we
So you
wait?
You can treat it as a pre-permitting conference. We often do that with, for example, Gerard and I are very much involved in offshore wind permits. And, we sit through the whole presentation. We review, just because there's a public interest here, we review documents before they actually become like final or already a document that's in our state domain. And, so we can transact. I know I understood that something that we had focused on was following a similar model like the one that we use with the Pleasant Bay PBA folks. And, we just basically locked ourselves in a room for months on end. It seemed, 1 day a month. And until we had a document that people felt like, hey, this is something that we can launch, we made ourselves available. So go ahead, Drew.
So for the TWMP, we can treat it similar to a CWMP where there can be an informal review. before the formal review. And during that informal review is what I was referring to earlier, where we have our hydrogeologists look at any preliminary results for the disposal area. And then our team would also go through the draft as is, and then provide any comments just to make sure there's no small nitpicky typos or anything that would be major when it comes to the calculations and in reaching the goals, or conceptual wise, anything we would have to clean up. And then afterwards, a more formal review would come to us, and then we would provide a letter with respect to that.
Right. I just want to make sure that what comes to the DEP, when the time comes for review, is very mature, Scott. So that's why
It's very what? Sorry, Millie, I didn't
it's
hear.
mature enough
Mature,
for
yeah.
us to say, yeah, this looks good. So I would say whenever you have something, I mean, I'll definitely have to work with Gerard and his team. But from the onset, Scott and Hillary, as you know, and Kurt, we've made this a priority. Summers are super busy, so we're going to have to basically sacrifice some inspections or, any other activities just to get this through. We've got to see this through. I think it's something that we promised. We can't take that promise back. So we'll have to reconfigure, myself included, reconfigure our schedules, and I will signal to the Boston office that this is coming. So Drew, I'm respectful of what you're saying. I think we're saying the same thing. I'd like to see
we are.
first.
Yeah,
Totally. I'd like to see the first sort of, here it comes. We can have this iterative discussion. We are, quote, open for select business. We've held 1 or 2 or maybe 3 face-to-face meetings in Lakeville, but if you want to come to Lakeville, you're welcome. If not, we can meet. We met the last time at Cape Cod Commission. I don't know if Tim, we can do that. All of us kind of like find a interim point and see if we can spend a day together just going through this thing. Or, have a conference call first and identify some gap areas where we need expertise. As Drew has called out, the hydrogeo is extremely important to look into, like mounding and things like that. So anything, or if you have sections, Scott, that you already know, we're going to have to do an extra focus on, if they're like standalone sections, or just let us know so that, I'll work with Gerard and we'll find a hydrogeo person. I know we've had Michelle Raycon help, and maybe we can see if somebody else is around. We'll definitely make sure that we have the staff ready and available.
Okay, thank you.
I want to ask a question, but I'm nervous too.
Oh, this is a safe place, Hillary.
Okay, I don't want my team to murder me. Where we're thinking about the downtown system, we have not done the hydro work at that site, which is the town hall parking lot.
Actually, Hillary, we talked, can I interrupt you? Because Anastasia and I talked about
We're going to save
this.
you.
We're gonna
Okay,
save you.
good.
So you can relax. The plan is
Okay.
going to say that the effluent is going to the transfer station.
Okay,
And we're not going to depend on the town hall parking lot, but we'd like to put the town hall
Okay.
parking lot as an option to be evaluated later.
okay,
Before we
okay,
build it.
perfect. So then we'll cost out with our cost proposal, we'll show the cost to pipe it to the transfer station.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You feel better now?
Yeah, I feel better now because I didn't want that.
Isn't that bad, Hillary?
I'm sorry, I just didn't want it to blow up in our face at like the 9th hour. So no, good. I feel
Yeah,
better.
we thought a lot about that, actually.
Okay, good. Thank you.
No, that's great. And, obviously, with Tim and the Cape Cod Commission, there'll be that consistency evaluation. So I'm really happy that they've been part of this process too. And I want to say thank you to Cape Cod Commission and Aaron and Tim. They flagged this for us. Hillary, you made yourself available in the team. And I'm just happy to see something significantly robust compared to, when we first started. And it could have been perfect. It's just we needed a little bit more. We needed that backup plan. That's going to be a requirement. That has always been our intention, to have a backup plan if the adaptive doesn't work.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, and Kurt, I guess I just want to go back. You identified 3 or 4 funding sources. Joe and I are gonna flag this to our commissioner and Gary Moran so that they are fully aware. I had already previewed in the senior staff call on Tuesday that we were having this phone call. And they've known, and thank you, Hillary, for extending the invitation to EPA. I think it was important for them to hear, because they always wonder, and we can't do enough justice to the project. It's better to have you as the energy behind this project, kind of like speak for yourself. And I'm happy that Mary Jo heard. But often, for example, you've got legislators that are always looking out for opportunities. So I know Sarah Peak and others, they're advocates for this kind of effort. We cannot lobby for you, but for sure our legislative affairs director has a lot of intel out there, so we can always keep Wellfleet on the regular communications with the Cape delegation.
What, Millie, is there something specific you think I should mention to Sarah? I mean, I'm happy to talk to both.
I think you can tell your story. I think that's really important. DEP is working with you to get to these milestones.
Okay, I mean,
it's a really bold plan. It's going to need money. But I think you're going to be really happy with the response that is hopefully coming from this administration very soon.
Fantastic. Well, we really appreciate it. I'm happy to talk to both Julian and Sarah. I mean, I know them well. I don't know specifically if there's anything else. They're aware of what we're doing. They're pretty knowledgeable about it. I have in the past been keeping them up to speed. So, but if you've got some suggestions, I'm happy to engage with them further.
Yeah, let's get together later on this week. Gerard and I will give you a call with the team also. So let's make a point to talk.
Okay.
By Friday.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Just send me a link.
Yeah, perfect. We'll do. I promise you. I promise you I will.
Okay.
Question from me, just for clarification. So, is the town planning on submitting a PEF for some of this work by this August? Was that what was said for SRF?
Yeah,
we're trying to figure that out, Drew, and your help would be greatly appreciated. Actually, we kind of the concern we have is there are August deadlines for SRF. We don't know what the deadlines are going to be for ARPA. The county's been in this machination of trying to figure out how to handle the county's ARPA funds, but those are going to be available. Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative, even USDA, there may be some opportunities there. Mass Works. So, we're trying to package it, and honestly, we're kind of struggling. There are a lot of pots out there. We don't want to miss deadlines, but all of those pots are going to be relatively flush pretty soon. And in a year or two, we're not going to be in very good shape.
Hey, Drew, I just wanted to get clarification on your question, because my hope is that we can submit whatever we need to submit by the August deadline for SRF consideration. And what I'm understanding, and I hope I'm right, is that we don't need final DEP approval to do that. I mean, that would be nice. That would give us more points for sure, but I don't know that you guys can complete your review that quickly. But that's, if we were to provide something to you in mid-June, 3 weeks from now, I guess I'd be interested in your thoughts on how we could get it from there to the SRF deadline, which I think is mid-August, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so one thing that I kind of said casually, but kind of, I guess we'll make it clearer. So the TWMP is helping us get towards a watershed permit, but the TWMP alone is it's a document of itself, and that's what would really increase your points. But you don't need it necessarily to apply for a SRF loan. But it is a competitive process. And so you're competing with other towns that may have a CWMP or TWMP, and they would get those points and you wouldn't.
And when you say a
so-
TWMP, do you mean a DEP approved TWMP?
Yes.
Okay. So back to I'm sorry to interrupt, but back to my question, if we were to give you something, a draft final mid-June, is it possible we could get the approval before mid-August? 2 months?
We'll do our best.
Okay, that's
Scott,
fair
we're
enough.
going to do our best. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to preview this for Maria Pinal, the SRF director, and Michelle Higgins, who's our Southeast region engineer points of contact, so that they know. I think the other thing that helps you though also is that you're pursuing a watershed permit. That's really attractive. It's something that not everybody else is pursuing. And I think it's a unique way to memorialize your intention with a schedule and a robust monitoring plan behind it. So,
Millie, I would also hope that the hybrid plan, and I know I'm a little biased here, but I would hope that the hybrid plan, the nature of what we're proposing, it being somewhat unique. I know there's a lot of people talking about, can you do this with INAs? Yep. And I know people at SRF are interested in funding that. So I'm hoping that would be considered a positive rather than a negative in review of the plan.
Yeah, I think you'll be pleased.
Okay. So a question for Hillary. Hillary, I'm going to assume that Anastasia and I are going to give you a report mid-June. Do you think
I'm counting on.
Well, I'm sorry, you're counting on it.
That's what I'm counting on.
Okay, good. That's fine. I like deadlines. So you should think about, you're the client. You have to submit it to DEP, not me, right?
Correct.
And you should think about whether select board or anybody else is going to say, why are you submitting it without giving it to us first? So I don't know what the mechanics are there, but I defer to you on that.
Yeah,
but I would like to get this process expedited. And I don't see any reason why DEP couldn't review it at the same time the town is reviewing it, right?
Well, and
that I think our job is to hand it to the select board, and then the select board takes ownership of it and delivers it to DEP. So we have to finesse that handoff internally sometime in the next couple weeks. My vision was that we would have a meeting with the select board after we got DEP involved, because Ryan had reached out when I sent the initial email. I lose track of dates, but it feels like a while ago, and wanted to meet with DEP. And we sort of pulled back a little bit and said, no, we need to first finalize what we're doing with DEP before we put anything to the public. So that's what this meeting is. And then I think if we're comfortable, we can then present Anastasia's work and your work to date and the financing piece at one meeting to the select board. My hope would be that we could have some folks from DEP on that meeting just to offer their support for the plan and the Cape Cod Commission, so that the select board is aware that we have the support of DEP, and we've been working hand in hand since 2016, you said?
Yeah, 2016. Yeah, June 2016.
So I think it's important that we're all together at that meeting. But that's
Hillary, let me just say, and I'm just going to speak my mind here. If the goal is August 15th and we got to go to the select board first before we send it to DEP, I, for one, am not optimistic that we're going to be sending it on June 16th. I think it might be in July. And then we're giving DEP an impossible job to get this done. No? Okay.
No, I think we could get on their agenda now for mid-June. So
you think they'll approve this the first meeting?
I mean, I'm hopeful. We have everything that they've asked for: the backup sewer plan, the downtown sewer plan. The Board of Health is on board. I think we've come a long way. Now, obviously, sometimes things get lobbed at us that none of us are expecting. So I don't want to seem too optimistic, but Kurt assures me that we're fine, and I assure Kurt that we're fine, and we have these conversations like pretty regularly. So we think we're fine, but
Yeah,
that doesn't mean we're going to have a meeting and something's going to get thrown our way and we're going to have to retool. But the sooner we do this, the sooner we can move along. So
yeah, and I'll do the background work with all of our members of the Board of Selectmen. I think we have at least 3 votes right now. This is very responsive to a 4th vote's, I think, affirmative. So in other words, everything we've done is in response to what they've been requesting as well. So I think we're okay. We've got at least 3. I think it's 4. There's the 5th vote would be somebody that is going to get elected in June. So,
Mhm.
I don't know.
we schedule the date and let you all know when it is. And it's going to be a Tuesday night. And they're doing a hybrid type of meeting, so you could be there via Zoom. So that's good.
Yeah, Hillary and Kurt, I really want to set up something with you guys for Friday, as early as Friday.
Sure.
So we can talk this type of detail, but I think the concept is spot on. And again, I think DEP, myself, we started this discussion today with the DEP commitment. And our commissioner is willing to go on a road tour this summer to talk to the Cape towns. He's done that in the past. I recall, for example, he produced an op-ed specific to DHY, and he himself went to those meetings when they were considering the district, and it happened, and then where that is now. But long story short, he is really, it's going to be a busy summer for him on the Cape. So I'm going to flag this for Commissioner Suberg and folks, and I want to get his take with regards to availability so that it coincides with your schedule. So I think maybe on sometime Friday, we should touch base if you guys are available, even if it's like a quick half an hour, 15 minutes. I'm just talking about the sequencing of events.
Can we pick that time now, Millie, just while I here, but Kurt, I'm readily available Friday morning as well after 9. So if you just give us a time, I think Kurt and I will be there.
Hey,
So I'm pretty much open from 11 to 5.
Okay, Kurt, will 11 work for you?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, let's do 11 then.
All right, Gerard, does that work for you as well?
I'm sorry, did you ask me that? 11 Friday?
Yes.
I'm sorry, yes, let me check.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's fine.
Great.
Okay.
And Millie, I just wanted to say, partly jokingly, but maybe not, I'm not sure you're aware, but Janet McCabe, who is Deputy Administrator for EPA nationally, has a summer house in Wellfleet. And she spoke at the last annual conference on the Cape about all the stuff we've been talking about. So who knows? Maybe there's an opportunity for to include her.
He's going to be in New Bedford on the 31st.
Okay, there you go.
She's going to be on the Cape in the summer in Wellfleet.
Yeah. So
we definitely, yeah, we want to definitely. She was highly complimentary.
She was.
It was just really very gratifying.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's some kind of event on the 31st announcing additional funds because of the bipartisan infrastructure law fund. So that's is focused at New Bedford Harbor, and yeah, so I think you'll have the LG there and Congressman.
Well, that's great.
Congressional delegation will be there. So yeah, that's awesome.
So another question from me. So has there been any legwork done for the PRB in terms of site-specific investigation on flow there?
Drew, I can quickly update you on that. We were heading toward, you may recall, we had a site selected at the corner of Bank Street and Commercial right downtown on Duck Creek. which in many ways looked like the perfect site. I was reviewing that with Marcel Bellevue from EPA, who just moved over to USGS, by the way. And he's a bit of a PRB expert. So we spent quite a bit of time looking at that site. I actually got some prices for drilling. And then we started talking more seriously about the downtown sewer, which would be the same area. So we've been debating whether it makes sense to go forward with that or not, or select a different site. And so when I started working with Anastasia a couple months back, we thought, let's put a little bit of hold on this. I am looking at a couple of other locations outside the sewering area. So I would invite your input into that and your thoughts. We've been, frankly, Kurt and I have been talking about it, and we have two different views of it. It's still a good site to investigate, but it would likely be within Anastasia's sewer footprint.
And that's something that we'd be interested in your feedback on as well. I mean, because there's still groundwater, there's still a 10 to 15 year transit time for water coming from the central district anyway. So it's not like putting a PRB in there would be be a waste of money, in other words, because it's still going to be treating untreated groundwater regardless, and it's in a perfect location. So we just throw that out because we keep going back and forth. It's a real interesting kind of judgment call as to whether you do it anyway. And that was kind of the discussion we had. We really were, we were really kind of on the fence, and we weren't sure what to do.
Okay. All right. The reason why I asked is just to get a better understanding of if timelines are met and you can meet the August deadline for SRF, what exact projects would you be applying for with a PEF? So it doesn't sound like the PRB. And what about for the IAs? Are you considering that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So as part of the TWP, you would have to link it as a town plan with some town oversight. So it wouldn't just be the upgrades homeowner by homeowner, and the homeowner would be responsible for.
No, we're seriously looking at a responsible management entity. And I guess I can talk about this. Brian Baumgartel at the MassTech is submitting a SNEP grant that we're quite optimistic about. And to Millie's point that she made a while back, which I was really appreciative of, maybe you can use SNEP money outside the SNEP region. Well, as it turns out, the solicitation from SNEP actually allows for that. So we're hopeful and optimistic that Brian's going to win that grant, which I think starts in September, October. And Wellfleet's committed to being one of, I think, just a handful of towns that are gonna work with Brian. And my understanding is Brian's going to be, if he gets the grant, he's going to be able to provide operation maintenance monitoring services paid for by the grant, which would be phenomenal. And therefore, and thereby create an RME, which would become the reporting agency to your department for compliance, which I think would be a great outcome.
It's also gonna take part in the installation, oversight of the installation, and partner up on the permitting. So they see it from installation through to operation and maintenance. So we're putting a lot of eggs in that basket for that grant because it provides just what we need. And just for longevity's sake, I think he said it was a 3 to 5 year grant. And at the end of the time period, it'll be structured in such a way that it's self-sustaining and that the homeowners are paying for the service. But up front, initially, the service would be paid for by the grant, just to prove that it works.
And we really were excited about that because that gives you exactly what you're looking for, I think, too.
Yeah, no, that's exactly, it's a town program. It's not just homeowner by homeowner.
Right, exactly.
So it's actually something together. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the other thing is we can always continue, we can invite Nate Keenan from the Clean Water Trust to see if there are any updates. So I know there was a recent NUIA charrette that Scott, I think you participated on, and it was devoted to funding.
Right.
So we can kind of recap. And I think actually with all the attention that the summer that the Cape's going to be getting soon, maybe there could be some kind of one-stop shopping kind of fact sheet that lays out all the financial funding options. So
Hmm.
maybe it's something that I can recommend or see if Boston is willing to help us put something together, even if it's, type of funding and a link to it. So I'll bring this back to the Boston folks.
That would be
Well,
helpful.
Yeah, that would be great, Millie. One thing that did come back, Rebecca just jumped off the line, but she had actually been looking at the Mass Works application site, and we've done those grants before. It's a fantastic site. It's a great process. It works really well. She was looking at the ARPA, and she said, "Oh my God, it's really difficult, very opaque." Just some feedback. So we are
Yeah, there
actively
was-
engaged. But if anything can be modeled after the Mass Works, and I know Mass Works is a platform that many other agencies are using. So it's just a piece of information.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I know there was a recent briefing that the Boston office offered just in general with bill funds. Maybe that session was recorded, but I'll find out because it was for water and wastewater projects. But I think sometimes with IAs, it's a little bit, that kind of happens in a different kind of funding world. So, but again, all things being equal, wastewater, maybe it's just, it counts and it matters and it doesn't matter. We can just, so I'll talk to Courtney and see if those sessions were recorded because it was sort of like a 101 on bill funds. So I'll see if I can resurrect that. So I'm making notes here.
And Millie, the other thing that's happening, I'm not sure she would be aware of, is Brian Baumgartel is working with the Barnstable County Commissioners to expand the so-called septic loan program, which has been in place for a long time for hydraulically failing systems. And it looks like that's going to get expanded to include what we're calling failing systems, including nutrient issues. So in other words, they could be used for upgrades. And from talking with Brian, it sounds like there's a fair amount of money available. And he had a very good meeting a week or two ago with the county commissioners to approve that. So that may be another really interesting source of money here that I'm just beginning to learn about. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah,
and Brian Baumgartel knows the details.
Yeah, I think inevitably there'll need to be a slide to talk about funding when presenting to the board.
Yes.
Because it's all about the money. So
somebody's going to pay for it, right?
We'll have to assist you with that.
Especially in Wellfleet right now.
Yeah, understood. Yeah. So
one more thing, and then I actually have to jet. Sorry, I keep on harping on the SRF thing because Ian and I are on the grading committee, so we're the ones fighting for ranking on the IUP for the Cape and Islands. So that's how I know a lot about it. For the centralized sewer, if that were to go, it would have to be permitted in the region first through a WP 79. And so that probably wouldn't happen in such a short time frame.
No, it'd be unlikely.
So just to give you guys a heads up on that.
Yeah.
SRF is pretty stringent on making sure that a full permit has been issued according to that timeline with the WP 79 before it goes to SRF.
And Drew, what is the time period that we're applying for? Is it just 1 year under SRF?
That I'm not sure.
What I'm wondering is if the sewer thing is, if the groundwater discharge permit is a year or two out, could that still be part of the initial submittal, or is that too far out? I guess phase one of the watershed permit would be 5 years.
Yeah.
So are we looking for things that would be intended to be constructed during the first 5 years, maybe?
For SRF?
Yeah.
Well, the WP 79 permit to discharge is different than the watershed permit.
Right, I understand that. Yep.
So they would, go ahead, I'm listening.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I don't know if I understand your question correctly.
Would that permit need to be in August, or would it need to be by the next October when the SRF loan application is put through?
By August.
I see. So you can't apply for it unless you have the permit, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
you can apply, but it just.
less points.
Exactly.
Okay, I got you. I got you.
And
So we're not
then
going to
that
have the
just
permit
decreases
by
your chances
August.
of actually ranking.
So what you're suggesting, Drew, and this is good advice, we should be focusing on those things that we're going to be ready to go on to apply for SRF funding.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, because Drew, there's some particulars about readiness to proceed that are part of the intended use plan, right?
Yeah.
thank you, Millie.
Bye, Millie.
Thank you, Millie.
We'll
So
talk
yeah,
Friday.
so Scott and others, the intended use plan for SRF has specific deadlines for like how long you have after the award is made before construction starts and things
Okay.
like that. So that'll probably help constrain what projects can go on which year's targeted intended use plan or when you'd want to apply for them.
And how many years, that was my other question, Tim. If we apply in August, how far out are we applying for funding things? Let's say we want to build the PRB in 18 months from August. Could that be applied for in August, or is it only the first stuff within the first 12 months?
I don't know how
Okay.
exactly that calendar works off the
Okay.
top of my head. I know we get one intended use plan per year at the commission that
Okay.
we do our consistency reviews for projects on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the DEP side of things, everything that leads up to us getting that draft or final intended use plan, what those timelines are like.
Is there
Okay.
money for design and permitting packaging? Because I imagine that's another step that we need before we go for construction money, correct?
Not necessarily everyone does a planning application before construction.
Okay,
But I think there is a planning route, and it would include design and permitting. I'm
okay,
not 100% sure on that, but there is a planning. I can't remember what the definition of SRF planning is.
okay. Because maybe that would be our next logical step for the sewer district.
Design work.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we got to qualify. We have to qualify the town hall parking lot. That's
Well, Anastasia, I know Anastasia knows this stuff pretty well. So you and I can brainstorm in this a little bit, Anastasia, and try to figure out what it is we can apply for in August. But Drew, I'm really glad you brought that up because
yeah.
frankly,
Drew-
wasn't very focused on that.
Drew, the other things that I wanted to run by you, we could, because of the stage of development, we could, I think, potentially look at the self-regulating tide gates for Mayo Creek and for House Pond. And the other would be, and this is kind of a hard one, but what do you think we should do relative to some sort of assistance for homeowners relative to enhanced IA?
So for the ecological restoration projects, those wouldn't be eligible. I don't have the exact reason why, but those typically don't fare well. And then assistance for the IA, it would just be at least the potential options that has been mentioned when it comes to the Barnstable County. A formal SRF that would still require a modification to how we do things now. And that's where Nick Keating would be in the conversation, but it'd be nothing different than what's already been said.
Yeah, he was optimistic that we could do self-regulating tide gates because it was infrastructure. So rather than a broad, like ecological restoration, but we actually did have a conversation with him, but I want to say about 8 or 9 months ago, and he felt that it would be SRF eligible. It may not rank, so to your point, it may not get the point totals may not be very good, but he didn't see any reason why we shouldn't apply.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to look into it further. I'm just going off the top of my head. I'm not really sure.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just curious. I wanted to get your reaction.
Could we put an application together for the town to purchase a certain number of nitro systems or nitrex systems, or to actually purchase the components?
Again, I'm not sure yet when it comes to the IAs. We're still
Okay,
developing
okay,
that policy. That's
okay.
where Nate would be in that conversation.
Okay.
But
'Cause
he, he's very big on having an actual proposal in front of him and then
Okay.
reacting to
Right.
that.
Right.
Okay.
Hillary,
work
we
on it.
should think more about that because
Yeah.
otherwise it's going to be tricky to do. Each homeowner coming forward at a different time. So somehow the town's got to be the focus of that, I think, but we'll
Well,
figure that
that,
out.
yeah.
Great.
Okay, well, we'll talk more about that internally.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for your, this has been a great meeting and I think we're good now. And
Yes.
we'll be talking, a few of us be talking on Friday, but we'll be in touch.
Thank you all.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, Drew. Thank you very much.
Yeah, everyone.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.